bit about me first. I don't want to talk too much about myself. But I guess that the main point here is that I'm a fairly unconventional in that I'm sort of half commercial and half technical, and I flip between sort of both roles interchangeably. So the serverless thing is obviously a bit of a bandwagon. There's lots of sort of misnomers and interesting things being said about what it can and can't do. I think I'm going to give you a kind of a balanced view as to what it is and where you can use it to benefit. Quick background. 2003 I founded a company which dealt with broadband acceleration. I ran that for 10 years. I may not look it, but I'm approaching 40 now. I know that's what people say. I'm not sure if I'm looking for reassurance there, but so I've done a lot of sort of telco kind of stuff. I built a wireless network on the island of Ibiza. It was an interesting project.
Didn't invite your friends then?
Yeah, I'm quite into the sort of networking side, so software-defined networking, that kind of thing. All of this requires development, which brought me into the world of DevOps. I've been a DevOps consultant in London for a few years. More recent, one of the companies I built was bought by a company called Phalanx, which is a cybersecurity company based in London. Currently sits on London Stock Exchange, and the recent gig is I'm CTO of Furnace, which is a serverless framework that we think hopefully will fix some shortcomings in this whole serverless bandwagon. So I hate these slides, but I feel like we've kind of got to do it anyway. So just to give the sort of service thing a little bit of context, we started off with virtualization in '98. That was people like VMware taking previously physical hardware devices and moving that into virtual, gives you higher utilization of hardware. The year after, unrelated but interesting, is Salesforce released their first SaaS product, which essentially was this usage-based cloud offering. Very significant sort of step forward. Fast forward a few years, AWS, we all know what they did. Essentially, they took this concept of virtualization. You could build resources, spin up a virtual machine, but in somebody else's data center. So AWS or Amazon obviously got quite good at doing this, and you were able to tap into their expertise and obviously buying power, that kind of thing. Fast forward a few years from that, Docker. Quite interesting again in terms of trying to get most out of the physical infrastructure that applications run on. So Docker was a mechanism for taking an application or a certain microservice, wrapping its dependencies with it, and then being able to run it on infrastructure where that service can scale independently. So that brought a number of benefits, not just to utilization of resources, but also in terms of development and the development or the software development lifecycle. Sort of between this sort of area here is where the DevOps sort of thing started to take hold, and a load of teams now all practice this DevOps thing. It sort of, I guess, to various levels of effectiveness. And then we move into serverless. So the promise of serverless, just to give you a bit of sort of, I guess, the headline things of what we're trying to address here is, and everybody says, okay, but there must be service to manage, and there are, or there must be service underneath this, of course, but you don't manage that. The idea is that you build an application, you push it to a service, and somebody else runs that code for you, right? And it's, yes, we've seen this before, but it actually gives some quite revolutionary benefits. For example, scaling automatically. You don't need, so Paul was talking about provisioning or trying to find out what kind of capacity you need for a particular service or application. With serverless, you don't necessarily need to do that. So you can push some code, a microservice to a cloud, and it will scale, not infinitely. It is not infinite scaling. If you suddenly get to a point where you're, I don't know, Barclays Bank and you're doing millions of transactions per second, AWS or Google or Microsoft, they're going to give you a call and say you need to back off or pay us some more money in advance, that kind of thing. But to the most part, it is scaling automatically. Perhaps the most significant thing for me is the usage-based billing. So, and this is a paradigm shift in terms of how things have been done before, is you're only paying for the processing time that code takes to run. So before we have to provision big servers or big virtual servers to run applications, now we can provision these applications without actually having to over plan capacity or deploy capacity, and we pay for every time that code's used, and it's a significant part of what serverless brings. So what that should do is allow you apparently to focus on building business value. Now, we've heard this over the years. It's nothing new. Forget about all this other stuff. You can focus on building business value. Is that the reality? We'll find out. It is supposed to lower the barrier to entry. The idea is you can create some code, you can give it to a cloud provider, they can run it for you, and you don't need to worry about all the other stuff you used to have to think about, right? This thing, FinDev, quite an interesting concept. For the first time, serverless allows you to have an appreciation for how much money some code or some service is going to take to run. And it's a significant shift when you can. I guess developers in the past have never thought about, okay, how much is this service going to cost me, right? With serverless, you can now start to think about, okay, is this code optimal? Is the amount of money this particular service is costing me relative to the value that it's bringing to me as a business? And serverless provides this concept of FinDev, where we can start asking these questions for the first time. So I thought about how do I give a balanced argument to serverless and the benefits? And the best way I felt was just to throw a load of tweets up there and ask you to read them. I will go through some. I'll start with Nathan Peck. He's running a fairly interesting application that's crawling 46,000 open source projects to find pull some data every single day. 7,000 million read units, cost him just under $6. Some Lambda, so these are all serverless components in AWS, a bit of storage, I think in total that's cost him about $15 per month. Incredible. That kind of workload usually would cost significantly more than that. Serverless for the first time. I put a clear price tag on application flow and unprecedented visibility and accuracy when designing the supply chain of the business. That's from a guy called Simon Wardley. I don't know if anybody recognise him. Check him out. The guy's amazing. All right, serverless is the fastest path to business value. That's it. Nothing more to understand. Okay, maybe. That's interesting. This was actually an advertisement on my Twitter feed. Serverless allows engineers to focus on code rather than managing infrastructure, while knowing functions with scale will scale with the applications. I'm not so sure about that one. That seems to be a little bit of bit speculative, in my opinion. This one's quite funny. 25 years ago we had COM, and it said you could just focus on your business logic. And then we had Java and .NET, they said the same thing. Dynamic languages, they said the same thing 10 years ago. Then we got this microservice thing, and that said the same thing, just focus on your business logic. And now serverless, right? We'll have to see how that pans out. One of the issues with serverless is this thing called cold start. I would consider it a trade-off. So just how things can scale up automatically. they can also scale to 0. So when your service is not running, you pay 0. It's significant. However, when a service scales to 0, it then goes into a state where it's not listening anymore. So the first request, whether that's an API request or the first request to that service after it's cooled down, can take a significant amount of time, and actually that can cause significant issues in certain applications. Right? So in 2018, this was a real problem. People now understand it now a bit better. 2019, people are now starting to see issues with vendor lock-in. All the cloud providers have a serverless offering. They all bring their own benefits, but it's sort of a bit of a difficult decision to A, either pick a cloud, or B, create a scenario where you're utilising the best of breed of multiple clouds. So that's the kind of concern. And this one's quite interesting to what Paul was saying. AWS is not about paying for what you use, it's about paying for what you forgot to turn off. Brilliant, and that pretty much nails it for me. So, to summarise, where next? The point of that last slide was to try and get the point across that there are some from a technical level, there are some really interesting benefits from serverless. However, it's not simply a case of choosing to use the technology, migrate your existing business processes, your software development lifecycle, and happy days. It's not that. Hopefully giving a balanced view of serverless. And I think that's it from me.
Brilliant.